My name is Deanne, and at 27, I thought signing a $10 million contract would be the happiest day of my life. Little did I know it would lead to my own sister, pushing me down a flight of stairs, leaving me in a coma. The most shocking part wasn't waking up alone in a hospital bed, but hearing my parents say I deserved what happened. They never expected to see me walk into that courtroom with the support that would make them collapse in disbelief. Before I tell you how my own sister tried to kill me over my success, let me know where you're watching from, and subscribe to hear more stories of survival and justice. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Seattle, I always knew I was different from the rest of my family. While my parents Thomas and Marie worked steady jobs at the local bank and elementary school, I spent my evenings disassembling computers and teaching myself coding languages. My bedroom walls were covered with math competition certificates, while my younger sister Jenna's room showcased participation ribbons from various activities she never quite excelled at. Deanne, not everyone needs to win first place to be special, my mom would say, whenever I brought home another perfect score. This was always followed by excessive praise for Jenna bringing home a C+ on her report card. Look how much she's improved, they'd celebrate, while my straight A's gathered dust on the refrigerator for a week before being taken down. This pattern continued throughout our childhood. When I qualified for a prestigious science camp at 14, my parents couldn't drive me because they needed to attend Jenna's dance recital where she had 2 lines in the chorus. I took 3 buses across town to get there myself. When I was accepted to the state science fair, they sent me alone while they took Jenna shopping for her prom dress, even though prom was still 4 months away. "Why do you always need attention?" Jenna would ask me. "Not everything has to be a competition," but it never felt like a competition to me. I simply loved learning and challenging myself. The validation I craved from my parents never came, so I learned to find it within my own achievements. By the time high school graduation arrived, I had earned a partial scholarship to MIT. It covered about 60% of my tuition, which I thought my parents would be thrilled about. Instead, they seemed more concerned with how they would pay for Jenna's education at the state university, despite her average grades and lack of scholarships. "We can help Jenna with her full tuition, but Deanne, you'll need to figure out the rest on your own," my father explained during my graduation dinner. "You're so smart, I'm sure you'll manage." And manage I did. During my 4 years at MIT, I worked 3 jobs simultaneously, tutoring underclassmen in computer science, working at the campus IT department, and doing freelance coding on weekends. I lived on ramen noodles and coffee, sleeping just 4 hours most nights. Meanwhile, my parents paid for Jenna's apartment near campus, because dorm life would be too stressful for her sensitive nature. Despite the exhaustion, I thrived academically. My professors recognized my talent for creating innovative security algorithms, and by senior year, I had published 2 academic papers. At graduation, when most of my classmates had their families cheering in the audience, my parents sent a text message. "Sorry we couldn't make it. Jenna has a summer cold and needs us. Congrats." My early career followed a similar pattern of struggle and perseverance. I started at small tech startups where my ideas were often overlooked because of my age and gender. In meetings, male colleagues would repeat my suggestions and receive praise while my original comments went unacknowledged. During my 3rd year in the industry, I developed a patch for a major security flaw that saved my company millions, yet received only a modest bonus, while my male colleague got promoted for implementing my solution. Everything changed when I met Amanda Phillips, the newly appointed CTO at Horizon Tech, a mid-sized cybersecurity firm. During a conference where I presented my research on encryption protocols, Amanda approached me afterward. "That was brilliant work," she said, handing me her card. "Most people in this room didn't understand half of what you presented, but I did. Call me on Monday. I think you're wasting your talent where you are." Amanda became more than just my boss. She became the mentor I had always craved. Under her guidance, I flourished. She pushed me to develop my ideas, gave me the resources I needed, and most importantly, made sure I received credit for my work. Within 2 years at Horizon Tech, I had built a reputation as an innovative problem solver. Then came the breakthrough. After 18 months of working nights and weekends, I developed a revolutionary security software that could detect and neutralize cyber attacks in real time, something the industry had been struggling to achieve. When Amanda saw the initial test results, she immediately recognized its potential. "This isn't just good, Deanne. This is industry-changing," she said, her eyes wide with excitement. "We need to get this in front of Williams Corporation immediately." The negotiation process with Williams Corporation, one of the largest tech companies in the world, was grueling. For 6 months, we went back and forth on terms, patents, and implementation strategies. Throughout it all, Amanda stood firmly by my side, refusing to let them diminish my role or contribution. "Either Deanne gets lead credit and full royalties, or we walk," she told their board during a particularly tense meeting. "This is her creation, and we won't accept anything less than what it's worth." The day we finally signed the contract is etched in my memory. $10 million for the initial licensing plus ongoing royalties that could potentially triple that amount over 5 years. As I signed my name on that final document, I felt a surge of validation that I had been seeking my entire life. In the boardroom of Williams Corporation, surrounded by executives in expensive suits, I finally felt seen. After the signing, Amanda and our team celebrated with champagne. As we clinked glasses, she pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you," she said, words I had longed to hear from my parents. "But I need to give you some advice. Success changes how people see you, especially those who never believed in you before. Be careful who you share this news with." I should have listened to her. But despite years of disappointment, some childish part of me still hoped that this achievement would finally make my parents proud. That this success would be big enough, impressive enough to make them see me. That hope would nearly cost me my life. The day after signing the contract, I drove to my parents' house for our monthly family dinner. Despite Amanda's warning, I was buzzing with excitement. Surely this news would finally earn their approval. $10 million wasn't just success. It was extraordinary success that even they couldn't downplay. My parents still lived in the same 2-story colonial where I grew up. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Jenna's car already there, along with an unfamiliar luxury sedan that I would later learn belonged to her new boyfriend, Kyle. "There she is," my mother called. As I walked through the front door, she gave me a quick hug, already turning back toward the kitchen. "You're late, Deanne. Dinner's almost ready." "Sorry, traffic was bad from downtown," I explained, hanging up my coat. "Big day at work." "Well, Jenna has big news too," my father interjected from his recliner, barely looking up from his newspaper. "She got a promotion at the department store. Assistant manager now." "That's great," I said sincerely. "Congratulations, Jenna." My sister sat on the couch scrolling through her phone. At 31, Jenna had bounced between retail jobs since graduating with her communications degree. This was her first promotion in 3 years, and I was genuinely happy for her. "Thanks," she muttered without looking up. "It's not like it's a big deal or anything." That's when I noticed the man sitting beside her, tall with slicked back hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Oh, this is Kyle," Jenna said, finally glancing up. "My boyfriend, Kyle. This is my sister Deanne, the one I told you about." The way she said "the one I told you about" made me wonder exactly what she had told him. Kyle stood and shook my hand, his grip unnecessarily firm. "Nice to finally meet you," he said. "Jenna mentions you occasionally." The emphasis on occasionally wasn't subtle. During dinner, my mother fussed over Jenna's promotion, asking detailed questions about her new responsibilities and the raise that came with it. My father proudly announced he would pay for a weekend getaway to celebrate her success. "So what's new with you, Deanne?" my mother finally asked as she served dessert. "Still at that same computer company?" This was my moment. I took a deep breath. "Actually, I just signed a major contract today." I began, trying to keep my voice casual despite my racing heart. "The security software I've been developing for the past 1.5 years got picked up by Williams Corporation." "Williams?" Kyle suddenly perked up. "The tech giant." I nodded. "Yes, they're implementing my security protocol across their entire global network." "That's nice, dear," my mother said, already turning to Jenna. "Did you tell Deanne about the employee discount you'll get now?" "Mom," I interrupted, something I rarely did. "The contract is for $10 million plus royalties." The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's fork froze midway to her mouth. My father's head snapped up from his plate. Jenna's face drained of color. 10 million, my father finally repeated. You're joking. No, I'm not, I said, allowing myself a small smile. We signed the final paperwork this morning. It's the biggest deal Horizon Tech has ever made. For a brief moment, I saw what looked like genuine pride flash across my father's face. My mother reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Well, that's wonderful, she said. Isn't that wonderful, Thomas? Absolutely, my father agreed, raising his water glass. A toast to Deanne's success. For 30 blissful seconds, I had what I'd always wanted: my parents' undivided approval. Then Jenna pushed back her chair with a screech. Are you serious right now? She snapped. I finally have something good happen in my career, and you have to come in and totally overshadow me. Tonight was supposed to be about my promotion. Jenna, I didn't mean to, I started, but she cut me off. You always do this. Every single time I have a win, you have to one-up me. Assistant manager isn't good enough because Deanne has to be a millionaire. My parents' fleeting approval evaporated instantly as they rushed to comfort Jenna. She's right, Deanne, my mother said, rubbing Jenna's back. You could have waited to share your news. Tonight was Jenna's celebration. $10 million or not, there's no excuse for showing off, my father added, his momentary pride replaced with familiar disappointment. I looked at Kyle, who was studying me with new interest, his eyes calculating. Later, I would learn just how significant that look was. I'm sorry, I said quietly, though I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. I thought you'd be happy for me. We are, my mother insisted unconvincingly. But timing is everything, Deanne. You've always struggled with appropriate timing. Dinner concluded in uncomfortable silence. As everyone moved to the living room for coffee, I excused myself to use the upstairs bathroom, needing a moment alone to collect myself. After splashing cold water on my face, I sat on the edge of the bathtub, wondering why I had expected anything different. As I stepped into the hallway, Jenna was waiting for me at the top of the stairs. You couldn't let me have one night, could you? She hissed, her face contorted with anger. One night where I wasn't compared to perfect genius, Deanne? No one was comparing us, I said, trying to keep my voice level. And I've never seen myself as perfect. Of course you don't, she spat. You're so humble about being better than everyone else. Do you know what it's like living in your shadow? Do you know what it's like being the sister of someone who makes everyone else feel stupid? Jenna, I've never tried to make you feel that way, I said, genuinely hurt. I've always supported your $10 million, she interrupted, stepping closer. Do you know what Kyle said to me in the kitchen just now? He said he's dating the wrong sister. He was joking, but was he really? I'm sorry if... I don't want your apologies, she shouted, her face inches from mine. I want you to stop taking everything. My parents' attention, my boyfriend's respect, everything. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Jenna's hands came up and connected with my shoulders. I felt the force of her push my body, losing balance at the top of the stairs. There was a moment of weightlessness, a split second where our eyes met, and I saw not regret but satisfaction in hers. Then I was falling. My arms flailed trying to grab the banister but missing. My back hit the stairs first, then my head bounced against the wooden edge of a step. The pain was immediate and blinding. I tumbled down, unable to stop myself, each impact sending new waves of agony through my body. As I lay crumpled at the bottom of the staircase, the last thing I saw before darkness claimed me was Jenna looking down from the top of the stairs. Her expression, not of horror or remorse, but of something that looked disturbingly like relief. Consciousness came in fragments. Beeping machines, hushed voices, the antiseptic smell of hospital disinfectant. Pain that ebbed and flowed like waves. I would surface briefly, catching snippets of conversations I couldn't fully comprehend before slipping back into darkness. Severe traumatic brain injury. Intracranial pressure, multiple fractures along the spinal column. Family has been notified but hasn't visited. Strange circumstances. Keep monitoring her vitals. Next 48 hours are critical. I don't know exactly when I fully regained consciousness. The world came back to me gradually, like a radio, slowly being tuned to the right frequency. The first clear image I remember is a woman in blue scrubs checking the monitors beside my bed. When she noticed my eyes tracking her movements, she smiled warmly. "Well, hello there," she said, pressing a button above my bed. "I'm Lucy, your primary nurse. You're at Seattle General Hospital. Can you tell me your name?" My mouth felt like it was stuffed with cotton. "Deanne," I managed to whisper. "What happened?" "You had a fall," Lucy explained, helping me take small sips of water. "A bad one. You've been in a coma for 2 weeks." 2 weeks. The information didn't fully register at first. Then memories started flooding back: the contract, signing the family dinner, Jenna at the top of the stairs, the look in her eyes as I fell. "My family?" I asked, expecting to hear they were anxiously waiting outside. Lucy's expression changed subtly. "I'll let the doctor know you're awake. He'll want to examine you." It wasn't until after the doctor's examination, after being told about my traumatic brain injury, 3 broken ribs, fractured vertebrae, and shattered left wrist, that I asked again, "Has my family been here?" Dr. Roberts exchanged a look with Lucy before answering. "I understand they were notified of your condition when you were admitted. Perhaps Lucy can fill you in on visitors after I've gone." After he left, Lucy busied herself adjusting my IV drip. "The only visitors you've had are some colleagues. Amanda, I believe. She brought those flowers." Lucy nodded toward a beautiful arrangement on the windowsill. "She's been calling daily for updates. But not my parents, or my sister." Lucy's face softened with compassion. "No, honey. I'm sorry." The pain of that realization was worse than my physical injuries. I asked Lucy for the phone, which she placed carefully within my reach before giving me privacy. My mother answered on the 4th ring. "Hello?" "Mom, it's me," I said, my voice still raspy from the breathing tube they had removed just hours earlier. There was a pause. "Deanne, you're awake?" "Yes, I woke up today. I've been in a coma for 2 weeks." Another pause. "Yes, the hospital called us when you were admitted. We've been very concerned. You haven't visited." I hadn't meant it to sound accusatory, but the words came out that way. "Well, we've been very busy with Jenna. She's been absolutely devastated by your accident." The way she emphasized accident made my stomach clench. "It wasn't an accident, Mom. Jenna pushed me." My mother's voice turned cold. "That's a terrible thing to say. Jenna told us you tripped. She tried to catch you but couldn't reach you in time." "That's not what happened," I insisted, tears forming in my eyes. "She pushed me. She was angry about my contract and she pushed me down the stairs." "Deanne, you always do this. You've always been jealous of the attention Jenna gets. Now you're making up stories to get sympathy. The doctor told us you might have memory issues from your head injury." "Mom, I remember exactly what happened. I need you. Why haven't you come to see me?" I heard muffled voices, then my father came on the line. "Deanne, stop this nonsense right now," he said firmly. "You tripped and fell. That's the end of it. And frankly, with the way you were showing off about your money at dinner, maybe you deserved a little humbling." His words hit me like physical blows. "Dad, how can you say that I could have died?" "But you didn't," he replied coldly. "And now you're trying to blame your sister for your clumsiness. That's low even for you." "Even for me, what does that mean?" "It means we're tired of your attention-seeking behavior. Always have to be the star, don't you? Well, your sister has been promoted, and we're focusing on her positive news instead of your drama." The line went dead. He had hung up on me. I lay in my hospital bed, phone still clutched in my trembling hand, and broke down completely. Lucy found me that way minutes later, sobbing so hard my broken ribs screamed in protest. She gently took the phone and held my hand until I could speak again. "They said I deserved it," I whispered. "They said I made it up. That I'm jealous of my sister." Lucy's jaw tightened. "I've been a nurse for 20 years and I've seen a lot of family dynamics, but that's just wrong." She squeezed my hand. "I'm calling your friend Amanda. You shouldn't be alone right now." Amanda arrived within the hour, her face pale with concern when she saw my condition. Behind her came a sharp-featured woman with a sleek ponytail and calculating eyes. "Deanne, this is Sarah Chen, our company's legal counsel." Amanda introduced her. "I hope you don't mind that I brought her." Sarah stepped forward. "Miss Phillips filled me in on what happened. If what you suspect is true about your sister deliberately pushing you, we're looking at attempted murder charges." "It's true," I said firmly. "I remember everything clearly. She pushed me and she meant to hurt me." Sarah nodded, taking notes on her tablet. "And your parents are supporting her version of events. They said I deserved what happened." I replied, still unable to believe their cruelty. "They haven't even visited me." "That's negligence on top of everything else," Sarah said, her voice matter of fact. "We can add that to the civil suit." "Civil suit," he echoed. Amanda sat on the edge of my bed, careful not to jostle my injuries. "Deanne, what happened to you isn't just a family matter. Your sister tried to kill you. And based on what Lucy told me about your parents' response, they're complicit in covering it up. You need to fight back." "But they're my family," I whispered, the last shred of my childhood hope, still clinging desperately to that word. "Family doesn't do this," Amanda said gently. "Family doesn't push you downstairs, then blame you for falling." As Sarah outlined possible legal actions, another disturbing thought occurred to me. The contract I signed. My copy was in my purse when I went to my parents' house. Amanda and Sarah exchanged concerned glances. "We need to look into this further," Sarah said. "If your sister's boyfriend was unusually interested in your deal with Williams and if he had access to your personal belongings after your fall, we could be looking at attempted corporate espionage as well." It was almost too much to process. My sister had tried to kill me, my parents had abandoned me, and now there was a possibility that my intellectual property had been compromised. As if reading my thoughts, Amanda squeezed my hand. "One step at a time. First, you focus on healing. Let Sarah and me handle the rest." In that moment, lying in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines, keeping track of my vital signs, I realized that family isn't always defined by blood. Sometimes family is the nurse who holds your hand when you cry. Sometimes it's the mentor who drops everything to be by your side. Sometimes it's the lawyer who fights for justice when those who should protect you become your persecutors. I had lost my blood family, but perhaps in that hospital room I was finding my real one. Physical therapy began 3 days after I regained consciousness. Each session was an exercise in agony and frustration. Simple movements I had taken for granted, my entire life now required immense concentration and effort. Lifting my arm, turning my head, sitting upright without support. "Small steps," Deanne encouraged Marcus, my physical therapist. "Your body experienced severe trauma. Recovery is a marathon, not a sprint." While I struggled to rebuild my physical strength, Amanda worked tirelessly to protect my professional interests. She arranged for my position at Horizon Tech to be held, assuring me that my project implementation with Williams Corporation would proceed as planned despite my absence. "Jackson Williams himself asked about your recovery," she told me during one of her daily visits. "The entire corporation is horrified by what happened to you. They've fast-tracked the security implementation and are honoring every term of our contract." The news should have brought comfort, but something was still bothering me. "Has anyone checked if my contract information was compromised?" Kyle seemed very interested when I mentioned Williams Corporation. Amanda's expression turned serious. "Sarah's looking into it. We've requested the security footage from your parents' home on the night of your fall. They have security cameras. This was news to me." "External ones, yes. Standard home security system." Sarah subpoenaed the footage as part of the investigation. What the security footage revealed went beyond my worst expectations. Not only did it show Jenna following me upstairs and the subsequent confrontation, but it also captured Kyle rummaging through my purse while I lay unconscious at the bottom of the stairs. My parents stood by watching, making no move to stop him or to help me. But the most disturbing discovery came from the hospital's own security system. 1 week into my coma, my family had visited once. The footage showed them entering my room, not with flowers or cards, but with smiles that made my blood run cold. Lucy brought her tablet to my room one evening, her face unusually grim. Deanne, the police asked me to show you something. It's from our security cameras. Are you sure you want to see this? I nodded, though part of me already knew what I would see would change me forever. The footage showed my hospital room from a week earlier. I lay unconscious, connected to various machines. The door opened and in walked my parents, and Jenna followed by Kyle, who had an expensive camera hanging around his neck. "Oh my God, she looks terrible," Jenna said, but she was smiling. "Is she going to wake up?" "Doctor says it's uncertain," my father replied, standing at the foot of my bed, making no move to touch me or show any affection. Brain injuries are unpredictable. Kyle began taking photos of me in my unconscious state. Not concerned documentation of a loved one, but almost trophy shots with Jenna occasionally posing beside my bed, once even giving a thumbs up. "Finally shut up about her success, didn't she?" Jenna said, causing my mother to laugh nervously. "Jenna, that's not nice," she admonished without conviction. "But it's true," Jenna insisted. $10 million. Who does she think she is, Silicon Valley royalty? While they talked, Kyle moved around to the small closet where my personal effects had been stored. The camera captured him quickly rifling through my purse, removing papers, photographing them, then returning them. "Got what we need?" my father asked him directly, confirming his knowledge of whatever Kyle was doing. "All set," Kyle replied, patting his camera. "Mackenzie will be very interested in these specifications." Lucy paused the video, her face pale with anger. Mackenzie is the CEO of Rival Systems, Williams Corporation's biggest competitor. Kyle Reynolds works for their acquisition department. The betrayal was so complete, so absolute, that I couldn't even cry. My family had not only abandoned me in my time of greatest need, they had actively participated in stealing my intellectual property while I lay fighting for my life. "There's more," Lucy said reluctantly. "From 3 days ago." The second clip showed my family returning to my room, this time after I had regained consciousness, but during a period when I was heavily sedated for a procedure. They seemed surprised to find me awake, though groggy. "Well, look who decided to rejoin the land of the living," Jenna said, her tone mocking. "Thought you could escape by staying in a coma." "Jenna, please," my mother said half-heartedly. "Deanne, we came to see how you were doing." Through the haze of medication, I remembered this visit now. I remembered trying to speak but finding it difficult. "You pushed me," I managed to say to Jenna in the video. "See," my father said to my mother, "I told you she'd make up stories. The brain injury is affecting her memory." Kyle hung back again, taking photos. "Does she remember anything else about that night?" he asked too casually. "Like what?" my father asked. "Like our conversation in the kitchen, or me looking at her papers." My mother looked uncomfortable for the first time. Why would that matter? On screen, I became agitated, the monitors beside my bed registering my increased heart rate. "You took my contract, Kyle. Thief." Jenna moved closer to my bed, her face contorted with anger. "Shut up, Deanne. You've always been pathetic, but this is a new low. Making accusations when you're the one who tripped over your own feet." In the video, Lucy entered the room, immediately noticing my distress. "I need to ask you all to leave. Miss Thompson needs rest." "We're her family," my father protested. "We have a right to be here." "Actually, sir, visiting privileges can be revoked if visitors are causing patient distress," Lucy said firmly. "And right now her vitals are spiking dangerously. Please leave immediately before I call security." The footage ended with my family being escorted out by hospital security, Jenna looking back to shoot one last venomous glare at my unconscious form. Lucy set down the tablet. "I'm so sorry, Deanne. I had no idea the extent of what was happening. When I reviewed the footage with police yesterday, I was shocked. I sat in silence trying to process the depth of betrayal I had just witnessed. My entire life I had sought my family's approval, worked for their pride, longed for their love. Now I had to accept that not only did they not love me, they actively wished me harm. They wanted me to die. I finally said the words, feeling strange on my tongue. My own family wanted me dead. Lucy took my hand, her touch grounding me, as the full realization washed over me. "But you didn't die, Deanne. You survived. And now you have evidence of exactly what they did." That night alone in my hospital room, I hit the lowest point of my emotional journey. The physical pain of my injuries paled in comparison to the soul-crushing knowledge that the people who should have loved me most in the world had conspired against me, had celebrated my suffering, had hoped for my death. But somewhere in that darkness, a spark of determination ignited. They had tried to destroy me, to erase my accomplishments, to steal my work, to end my life. They had failed, and now they would face consequences for what they had done. As the saying goes, rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I would rebuild my life. 1 month after my fall, still in a wheelchair, but with my mind sharp and focused, I met with District Attorney Maxine Powell in my hospital room. Amanda and Sarah sat on either side of me like sentinels. "The evidence is compelling," DA Powell said, reviewing the security footage for the 3rd time. "The hospital video alone shows clear evidence of corporate espionage. Combined with the footage from your parents' home security system showing Miss Jenna Thompson deliberately pushing you, we have grounds for multiple charges." "What exactly are we looking at?" I asked. "For your sister, attempted murder in the 1st degree. For Kyle Reynolds, corporate espionage and theft of intellectual property. For your parents, she paused accessory after the fact and criminal negligence at minimum." Sarah nodded in agreement. "On the civil side, we're preparing suits against all parties for damages. Given your contract value and the potential loss of future earnings had you not survived, we're looking at substantial compensation." The door opened and Lucy entered with a distinguished man in an expensive suit. His presence immediately commanded attention. "Deanne," Amanda said, standing, "this is Jackson Williams, the CEO of Williams Corporation, one of the most powerful men in the tech industry," stood awkwardly at the foot of my hospital bed. "Miss Thompson, I've been hoping to meet you under better circumstances. Your security protocol is revolutionary. When Miss Phillips informed me of what happened to you and the potential compromise of your intellectual property, I wanted to offer my personal support." "Mr. Williams has something to propose," Amanda explained. Williams nodded. "Williams Corporation is prepared to stand behind you completely in this legal battle. Our legal team will work alongside your personal counsel and will cover all expenses related to both criminal and civil proceedings." "Why would you do that?" I asked, suspicious of such generosity. "3 reasons," he replied frankly. "First, your security protocol will save our company billions in prevented cyber attacks. Second, we can't allow corporate espionage to go unpunished. It sets a dangerous precedent. And third," his expression softened slightly, "what happened to you was wrong on a fundamental human level. No one should endure what you've experienced, especially not from family." As Williams outlined the resources his company would provide, including top medical care and rehabilitation, I found myself at a crossroads. Part of me still hesitated to pursue legal action against my own family despite everything they had done. That little girl who had desperately sought their approval still lived somewhere inside me, still hoped for reconciliation. "I need to think about this," I said when Williams finished speaking. After everyone left except Amanda, I confessed my uncertainty. They're still my family. As horrible as they've been taking them to court, feels like crossing a final line. Amanda sat beside me, her expression serious. "Deanne, I respect your feelings, but I need you to understand something. Your sister didn't just have a momentary lapse in judgment. She deliberately pushed you down those stairs, intending to cause serious harm, possibly death. Your parents didn't just fail to visit you. They actively participated in a scheme to steal your intellectual property while you were fighting for your life. And when you regained consciousness, instead of showing relief or remorse, they came to intimidate and gaslight you." "I know, but—" "No buts," Amanda said firmly. "This isn't a family squabble. This is attempted murder and corporate espionage. If you don't press charges, they won't stop. Next time Jenna might succeed." Her words struck me with the force of truth. This wasn't about revenge or even justice in the abstract. This was about protecting myself and my future. "You're right," I finally said. "Let's move forward with both the criminal charges and the civil suit." The next weeks were a blur of legal preparations, ongoing physical therapy, and emotional healing. Dr. Reynolds, a trauma psychologist, began working with me 3 times a week to process the complex grief of family betrayal. "You're mourning the family you thought you had," she explained during one session. "The family you hoped for. That grief is real and valid, even though they didn't deserve your love." While I worked on healing both body and mind, Amanda became my fiercest advocate in the professional realm. She arranged for me to work remotely during my recovery, keeping me connected to the implementation of my security protocol at Williams Corporation. The work provided a welcome distraction from the legal battle looming ahead. My support network expanded beyond Amanda and Lucy. Coworkers from Horizon Tech visited regularly, bringing home-cooked meals and much-needed laughter. Marcus, my physical therapist, celebrated every small victory with genuine enthusiasm from the first time I stood unassisted to my first steps without a walker. 6 weeks after my fall, I received a disturbing call from Sarah. "Deanne, we've intercepted several attempts by your family to access your hospital records and schedule. They've also been calling Horizon Tech demanding information about your contract details." "What do they want?" "Based on the transcripts of these calls, they seem desperate to know exactly what you remember and what evidence exists. I believe they're trying to formulate their defense strategy." "Or looking for ways to silence me," I said, voicing the fear that had been growing since viewing the security footage. "That's a possibility we can't ignore," Sarah agreed. "I've arranged for a security detail to be stationed outside your room effective immediately. When you're discharged next week, they'll continue to protect you at your apartment." The fact that I needed protection from my own family was yet another painful reality to accept. But as Dr. Reynolds reminded me, acceptance doesn't mean approval. It means acknowledging reality so you can respond appropriately. 2 days before my scheduled discharge, I achieved a significant milestone in physical therapy. After weeks of painful exercises, I was able to walk the length of the hospital corridor unassisted. My gait was still uneven and I tired quickly, but it was progress that had seemed impossible just weeks earlier. "You're ready," Marcus said proudly, "not just for discharge, but for what comes next. Court won't be easy, but you've got the strength for it now, physical and mental." As I prepared to leave the hospital and face the legal battle ahead, I realized I had built something precious from the ruins of my family relationships. A chosen family of people who supported me not out of obligation, but out of genuine care and respect. Amanda, who had become the big sister I never truly had in Jenna. Lucy, whose compassion had been a lifeline in my darkest moments. Sarah, whose fierce advocacy made me feel protected. Marcus, who had helped rebuild my broken body. Dr. Reynolds, who guided me through the labyrinth of trauma and betrayal. Even Jackson Williams, who had offered corporate resources when he could have simply walked away from the controversy. These were the people who would stand beside me in court. These were the people who had earned the title of family through their actions, not their DNA. The night before my discharge, as I packed the few belongings I had accumulated during my hospital stay, I found a card from Amanda. Inside, she had written words that would become my mantra. "In the difficult days ahead, they tried to break you. Instead, they showed you how strong you truly are." The county courthouse was an imposing structure of marble and granite, its classical columns suggesting permanence and authority. As our small procession approached the entrance, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. Despite weeks of preparation with Sarah and the district attorney, the reality of facing my family in court was overwhelming. "Deep breaths," Amanda whispered beside me. "Remember, you're not alone." She wasn't exaggerating. Behind us walked Lucy, who had taken a day off from her nursing duties to attend. Marcus had come straight from the hospital, still wearing his physical therapy department polo. Sarah led our group, her posture confident and determined. 2 security personnel from Williams Corporation flanked our group, their watchful eyes scanning the crowd. Inside, the courtroom was already filling with spectators. High-profile cases involving tech corporations always drew attention, but the family drama aspect had attracted additional media interest. Sarah had prepared me for this, coaching me to keep my eyes forward and ignore the whispers. As we took our seats at the prosecution table, I caught my first glimpse of my family. They sat together at the defense table, looking oddly small and ordinary, considering the destruction they had caused. My parents wore expressions of injured innocence that might have been convincing to anyone who hadn't seen the security footage. Jenna stared straight ahead, her face a mask of defiance. Kyle sat slightly apart, already distancing himself physically from the others. Their attorney, Lawrence Bradshaw, was known for handling local divorce cases and minor criminal matters. The contrast between him and our legal team was stark. Besides Sarah, we had District Attorney Powell for the criminal charges plus 2 senior attorneys from Williams Corporation's legal department. The proceedings began with Judge Eleanor Ramirez calling the court to order. Docket number 2025 CR 7845 State v. Jenna Thompson, Kyle Reynolds, Thomas Thompson, and Marie Thompson. Multiple charges, including attempted murder in the first-degree corporate espionage accessory after the fact and criminal negligence. After preliminary motions, DA Powell delivered her opening statement, her voice clear and confident as she outlined the prosecution's case. Your Honor, members of the jury, this case before you today is about the ultimate betrayal. The evidence will show that on September 12, 2025, the defendant Jenna Thompson deliberately pushed her sister Deanne Thompson down a flight of stairs with the intention of causing serious bodily harm or death. This was not an accident. This was not a moment of passion. This was a calculated act motivated by jealousy and greed. Powell went on to detail how my parents had failed to seek medical attention for me, how Kyle had stolen confidential contract information, and how all 4 defendants had later visited my hospital room, not out of concern, but to mock my condition and ensure their story was intact. Perhaps most disturbing, Powell continued, the evidence will show that while Miss Thompson lay in a coma fighting for her life, her family members were actively hoping for her death as it would simplify their narrative and eliminate the primary witness to their crimes. I watched my parents' faces as Powell spoke. My mother dabbed at non-existent tears, with a tissue playing the role of distraught parent. My father maintained an expression of outraged dignity, as though the very accusations were beneath contempt. When Bradshaw rose for the defense's opening statement, his approach became immediately clear. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is indeed about family, but not in the way the prosecution has characterized it. This is about a family torn apart by one member's lifelong pattern of competition, exaggeration, and attention-seeking behavior. He went on to paint me as the family villain, claiming I had always been jealous of. Jenna had always needed to be the center of attention and was now fabricating accusations, because I couldn't accept that I had simply tripped and fallen. Miss Thompson suffered a traumatic brain injury, Bradshaw emphasized. Her memory of events is compromised by both her injury and her pre-existing resentments. The prosecution's case rests almost entirely on the testimony of a woman whose recollection cannot be trusted. What Bradshaw didn't know was that our case didn't rest on my testimony alone. As the trial progressed, this became painfully clear to the defense. The prosecution's first evidence was the security footage from my parents' home, showing Jenna following me upstairs, the confrontation, and the push that sent me tumbling down the staircase. The jury visibly reacted to the clear, unambiguous image of Jenna's hands connecting with my shoulders and my subsequent fall. Next came the hospital security footage showing my family's behavior while I was unconscious, and later their intimidation when I had awakened. Several jurors looked physically ill as they watched Kyle photographing my unconscious body while my family stood by laughing. Lucy's testimony was particularly damaging to the defense. As a medical professional with no personal connection to me prior to my hospitalization, her account of my family's behavior carried significant weight. In 20 years of nursing, I have never seen family members treat an injured loved one with such callous disregard, she stated firmly. When they visited, Miss Thompson's vital signs would become distressed. Her heart rate would elevate, her blood pressure would spike. Her body was physically reacting to their presence as a threat. The technical aspects of the corporate espionage charges were explained by a cybersecurity expert from Williams Corporation, who detailed exactly what information Kyle had stolen and how it could have been used by rival systems to undermine my security protocol. Throughout the testimony, I noticed Kyle becoming increasingly separated from my family, both physically and emotionally. He whispered frequently to Bradshaw, and I suspected he was considering a deal to testify against the others. On the third day of the trial, just as the afternoon session was about to begin, there was a commotion at the courtroom doors. Sarah leaned over to me with a small smile. Right on schedule, she whispered. Jackson Williams walked into the courtroom accompanied by 2 assistants. His presence caused an immediate stir among the spectators and media. As one of the most recognizable figures in the tech industry, his appearance transformed the trial from a local case to national news. I watched my father's face as he recognized Williams. His eyes widened and he grabbed my mother's arm so tightly she winced. "Oh my God, it's Jackson Williams," he said loudly enough for those nearby to hear. Judge Ramirez called the court back to order as Williams was sworn in as a witness. DA Powell approached him with appropriate deference. "Mr. Williams, can you state your relationship to the plaintiff, Deanne Thompson?" "I am the CEO of Williams Corporation. Ms. Thompson developed a revolutionary security protocol that our company licensed for $10 million, with additional royalties based on implementation success. And how would you characterize the importance of this security protocol?" Williams leaned forward, his expression serious. "It's not an exaggeration to say Ms. Thompson's work represents the most significant advancement in cybersecurity in the past decade. Our preliminary implementation has already prevented attacks that would have cost us hundreds of millions in damages and compromised customer data." Powell nodded. "Mr. Williams, are you aware of attempts to steal this technology?" "Yes. Our internal security team working with law enforcement discovered that specifications of Ms. Thompson's protocol were photographed by defendant Kyle Reynolds while she was unconscious in the hospital. These photos were sent to Mackenzie Oliver, CEO of Unravel Systems, our primary competitor." This revelation caused another stir in the courtroom. Mackenzie Oliver was as well known as Williams in tech circles, and the implication of her involvement elevated the case further. And what would have been the consequence if Unravel Systems had successfully implemented Ms. Thompson's protocol before Williams Corporation? Beyond the obvious financial implications for our company, it would have robbed Ms. Thompson of proper credit for her work and significantly reduced her royalties. Given the value of the protocol, we're talking about potential losses in the tens of millions of dollars. As Williams continued his testimony, I watched my family's demeanor change dramatically. The gravity of their situation seemed to finally register. This wasn't just a family dispute that would end with a slap on the wrist. This was a high-profile case involving powerful corporate interests with serious criminal charges and potential prison sentences. During cross-examination, Bradshaw tried to suggest that perhaps I had shared the information with Kyle, willingly then changed my story after the fall. Williams' response was cutting. "Mr. Bradshaw, the security protocol in question, took Ms. Thompson 18 months of dedicated work to develop. The idea that she would casually share it with a man she had just met, who happens to work for a competing company, is not just unlikely, it's absurd." By the time Williams stepped down from the witness stand, the atmosphere in the courtroom had shifted decidedly against the defense. I could see it in the jurors' faces in the way they now looked at my family with barely concealed disgust. The final blow came when Kyle's attorney requested a sidebar with the judge. After several minutes of hushed conversation, Judge Ramirez announced that court would recess until the following morning. Sarah explained the development during the drive back to my apartment. "Kyle's flipping. He's agreed to testify against your family in exchange for reduced charges. His attorney reached out to Powell this morning." The next day, Kyle took the stand as a witness for the prosecution. Under oath, he admitted that he had been dating Jenna specifically to gain access to me after learning of my work with Williams Corporation. He testified that my parents had been aware of his intentions and had actively helped him photograph my contract details after my fall. Most damning of all, he recounted a conversation from the hospital during my coma. Jenna said she hadn't meant to kill Deanne, just hurt her badly enough to keep her away from the family dinner where I could get the contract information. But then she said maybe it was better this way because if Deanne died, there would be no witness to the push. As Kyle spoke, Jenna's composed facade finally cracked. She jumped to her feet, pointing at him accusingly. "You, lying snake," she shouted. "You promised we'd stick together. You said if I pushed her, you'd make sure we both got rich from her stupid software." The courtroom erupted in chaos. Judge Ramirez banged her gavel, repeatedly calling for order. Bradshaw tried desperately to control Jenna. But she was beyond reach, years of jealousy and recent fear converging in a meltdown that effectively confessed her guilt to the entire court. She always had to be better than me. Always the genius, always the special one. I just wanted her to hurt like I've hurt my whole life, living in her shadow. As court officers moved to restrain Jenna, my parents made a last desperate attempt to save themselves. My father stood pointing at Jenna. "We had no idea she would push Deanne," he declared loudly. "We thought Kyle was just going to look at some papers. We never agreed to violence." My mother nodded vigorously beside him. "Jenna has always had anger issues. We've tried to get her help. This is all her doing, not ours." Their willingness to sacrifice their favored daughter to save themselves was the final betrayal in a long line of betrayals. As they were all escorted from the courtroom, I felt an odd sense of calm wash over me. The truth was out exposed in the harsh light of justice for all to see. The jury deliberated for just 1 hour before returning with their verdict. The verdict came swiftly and decisively. Jenna was found guilty of attempted murder in the first degree. Kyle was convicted of corporate espionage and theft of intellectual property, though, with a reduced sentence due to his cooperation. My parents were found guilty of accessory after the fact and criminal negligence. In the civil suit that followed, all 4 were ordered to pay substantial damages. As I watched them being led away in handcuffs, I expected to feel triumph, or at least satisfaction. Instead, I felt a complex mixture of relief, sadness, and something unexpected freedom. The family that had constrained me with their expectations, their jealousy, and ultimately their violence no longer had power over me. 1 year after the trial, my physical recovery was nearly complete. The traumatic brain injury had left me with occasional migraines and subtle balance issues that only I noticed. My broken bones had healed, leaving behind scars that Marcus assured me would fade with time. "The body remembers trauma," he said, during our final physical therapy session, "but it also remembers healing." Professionally, my security protocol exceeded all expectations. Williams Corporation's implementation saved them over $3 billion in prevented cyber attacks in the first year alone. My royalties far surpassed the initial $10 million contract, providing financial security I had never imagined possible. But money and professional success weren't the true measures of my recovery. The real healing came in the relationships I built and the purpose I found after nearly losing everything. With Amanda's encouragement, I established the Phoenix Scholarship Fund for Young Women in Technology, providing educational opportunities for girls who, like me, might not have family support for their ambitions. Each year, the fund supported 50 promising students, covering not just tuition but living expenses, mentorship, and internship placements. Through a support group for survivors of family violence, I created a network for those who had experienced similar betrayals. There, I met others who understood the unique pain of having those who should love you most become your greatest threat. Together, we built a community of healing and growth. An unexpected reconnection brought another layer of healing. My mother's sister, Aunt Patricia, reached out after reading about the trial. We had lost touch years earlier after she and my mother had a falling out. "I always knew something wasn't right in that house," Patricia told me over coffee during our first meeting. "The way your mother and father treated you compared to Jenna. I tried to say something once, and that's when your mother cut me off completely." Patricia shared stories of my early childhood that my parents had never told, of a bright, curious little girl who asked endless questions and built elaborate structures with blocks. She had photos I had never seen, memories I had been denied. Through her, I reclaimed pieces of my history that had been hidden from me. Perhaps the most unexpected development in my recovery journey was Sam, a trauma counselor I met through my support group. With gentle patience, he helped me learn to trust again, to believe that not everyone who claimed to care would eventually betray me. Our relationship progressed slowly, built on honesty and respect, rather than the conditional approval I had grown up seeking from my parents. That Thanksgiving, 1 year and 2 months after the trial, I hosted dinner in my new home. Around my table sat Amanda and her husband Lucy, and her daughter Patricia, and her family Sam, and several friends from work and my support group. As we shared a meal and expressed gratitude for the year's blessings, I realized I had created something my biological family had never provided: a safe space where everyone was valued, where achievements were celebrated without jealousy, where love was not a weapon, but a gift freely given. The scars of my past would always be with me, both physical and emotional. There were still nights when I woke from nightmares of falling of Jenna's face watching me tumble down the stairs. There were still moments when a casual comment would trigger memories of my parents' coldness or cruelty. But these wounds no longer defined me. They were part of my story, but not its conclusion. The family that had tried to destroy me had instead set me free to build a life of genuine connection, meaningful work, and hard-won peace. As I looked around my Thanksgiving table at the faces of those who had chosen to stand by me, who had earned the title of family through love rather than blood, I understood the most important lesson of my journey. Sometimes losing what you thought you needed is the only way to find what you truly deserve. Have you ever had to set boundaries with toxic family members? How did you rebuild your support system afterward? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story of survival and justice resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe to hear more authentic journeys of overcoming life's greatest challenges. Remember, family isn't always defined by DNA, but by those who show up for you when it matters most. Thank you for listening, and may you always find the strength to stand up for yourself, even when those who should protect you become the ones you need protection from.